we'd get high and talk about rectangles. We'd take acid and talk about rectangles.
I can see 3 rectangles in the painting behind you right now. Yeah, CBGB's and Last Rites, man. I mean, a lot of situations, but CBGB's fucking huge, man. Huge. And then it's so cool. The raddest part about it too is that what it did for me is totally separate. Well, obviously very separate, but like it didn't even have to do with the actual original CBGBs. It had to do with the 313
gallery
store.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. You know what's funny too? My show at CBGB Gallery, like, wound up getting that show by approaching the curator at the time. It was.
I don't even think you have to hold that up by your face. It'll be
no. Sorry, it's out of habit. The curator at the time, I don't remember her name. It wasn't. I think Jonathan Levine was doing it for a little while, but Micheline. Yes,
Micheline.
And she had the big cat.
Yeah,
and she had the big beautiful
awesome.
cat. Micheline, yes, she was awesome. And I approached her with the project, and I put together a show. It was a 3-person show because the place was too big to do a 1-person show. I didn't want to, and I wanted it to be something interesting.
That place was huge.
So I put together a show with myself and Eric Foss because we were close at the time, and I approached Colin Burns. And I did a 3-person show, and I put together. I still have actually the proposal
David Hochbaum, Colin Burns, and Eric Foss.
Yeah, I have the proposal. I made a proposal, like a project, like a presentation with the plastic thing that goes down on the sleeve. Yeah. I still have it. I have it in a folder. I have it in a folder somewhere. Yeah. The whole thing where I collected like Colin's work. I approached him. I need examples of your work. And Foss gave me examples of his work. And it's totally glue stick. It's like not beautiful and great. But I took
back
that.
Then I'm sure it looked fucking.
Dude, I was fucking sharp. I showed it to Micheline. I gave her the proposal, and everybody had enough clout that it got the show. And that was my show at CBGB's. And this is before Colin and I were even doing Shithouse. This is before Travis lived in New York.
What year? Do you remember what year? Like,
oh God, I have the flyer. I have flyers since I was in.
Was it 2000 or even before 2000?
No, it was before 2000. It was probably. Let's see, Bill Hurd. I don't know.
Like my first show.
It might be 99 or 2000. It might be 99, 2000, around that time. Because it was before 9/11.
2000. 99, yeah.
But yeah, that place, like, and that didn't like start a relationship with Colin, but it definitely was the first, like, okay, I exist here in New York and you exist here in New York now, and we know about each other's past a little bit in Boston, but we're both artists, we respect each other, like, respect. And, you know, I liked what he was doing, and I thought it was a nice mix to the show, because Eric Foss's work were these giant charcoals and oil paintings, really big and really like somebody who listens to Tool a lot, you know, they really like Alex Gray's work or something, or Giger, and Colin was doing these graphic screen printing and lino cuts things, 3 very different kinds of art, and it was cool. I have nothing else to say about that. I'm done.
That's fucking dope, and that's so great. I remember too at the group show, because God, man, that first show that I did there was probably 15, 20 artists, something, because that place is so big, right?
It's enormous.
And I remember we got there, and I mean, it probably wasn't even packed, but like there was definitely people in there, you know.
Right.
And I was so nervous, I had to like walk around the block a couple times. And I remember that was like a common thing for me for a while in the beginning.
Yeah, you know? Walk it off.
Just to like, because I got so nervous all the time.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, you were also your physical presence is very definite, especially back then. You had no eyebrows at times and these long dreadlocks.
Yeah.
You were like very tall, so you kind of stick out like a sore thumb.
But yeah. The fucking yeah. And that's also too the same. Another person that came out of CBGB's was meeting Michael Gillespie, or The photographer, you know him.
I know him. I know.
Yeah,
Maybe you're
you've
saying the
met
name
him
wrong.
before.
Michael.
Yeah, you would know Michael.
Michael.
Seen it too.
Michael Gillespie.
I want to say it's Gillespie. Gazelle?
Okay.
Gazelle?
What's his work like?
I don't want to do that because it really doesn't.
Just do it because I.
Okay, we'll the photographer that we talked about the other day too, that you were
Joe
inspired
Peter
by.
Witkin.
Joe Peter Wickin-ish
Right.
type of stuff.
Right.
You know.
Black and white, dark.
Yeah, yeah. Does a lot of like sepia tone stuff.
Right.
I mean, I know in the more recent years, I think he's totally, consumed by being like a director for like big magazine companies and stuff like that. So that's kind of like what he does now. But we met there because he was showing his work there, and we both came the same day of like installation or whatever to drop off the work and stuff. Right. And that was the type of gallery, man. You hung your own shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which was also totally kind of CBGB's too.
Yeah.
Like, it was this rock and roll,
I loved it. It was DIY. I could show up there. I remember when I first came back to New York in '95. I remember I could just go with these like folders full of like Copy Cop was in Boston, but Kinko's was, I think, New York. But we still had stuff from Copy Cop, of portfolios made, homemade, and just show up at these bars and places and just like, hey, I want to do a show, and be like, yeah, let's do a show, but you got to do everything. You just show up and I sell drinks. That was the thing. They would let you hang your work because they were just like, pick a night, we'll set it up. They had nothing to lose. You're just bringing customers.
Yeah. Well, I think that's what a lot of people tend to. I don't know. I shouldn't say that. It's kind of mean, but like I feel like that's what people kind of forget, though, is that idea of like showing is just. It was just about putting your work anywhere you could. Because in Boston, that's all I did. All I did was show up bars, nightclubs, like on the fucking streets, man. Like anywhere, I would set it up. I would crash art fairs, in Boston, and just put my fucking work up against the brick wall as people were coming in and get thrown out by the fucking.
Well, now it's just done online. Well, people aren't paying attention to things that are online now, so people just throw it online. It's super easy. There's no risk, with the same kind of reward. It's just easy, and it's just a different approach. But it doesn't have all that extra work that you have to do to get it done. The journey to get that fucking work to the place, scouting out the place and setting up shop, and if you're doing it on the street, it's very guerrilla style, and you had to like make sure you don't get pinched because they take your work away, and I mean, what was it was about being seen. Right? And now people are just seen online and they get the recognition because they're liked, they get acknowledgement. So it's like, okay, my work's been seen, but it's a whole different experience. It's not in the real world. It's not in not in the context of the real world of your existence. You're like physical, sharing the same space with the thing,
Yeah. And even the bar scenes and stuff like that, showing your work in the bars, it was like, people weren't going there to look at artwork.
No,
it was cool as shit to have your shit there. They were going
because
there to
people were going to have that night
and socialize.
And it was either like,
but it was like at the same time you could be like, oh, there's a fucked up
and to be a part of that, like for that month or whatever that art was up for 6 months sometimes, and there were people that were going to have the best night of their life, or there were people who were regulars to have like this whole part of their life that this work is suggested of and associated with. It's just being a part of the landscape of the then and now in the peripheral. It didn't have to be like, oh, hey, ho, look at me. But, hey, ho, I'm part of the landscape right now. Mm-hmm. And it's special that way. Because it's a lot more, I don't know, inclusive and part without being so loud and like being about like either the status or like being, oh, that's a little bit too, bohemian for me. I'm not interested in like,
Absolutely. I think that's the big problem, is that everything has become to be too like, well, if it's not a gallery, it's not for me.
The confusion of status. Yeah. What is like your status or.
Yeah,
Ugh.
and I mean that's you know, I don't know. You know, I don't know. I guess it is what it is. You know,
It is. It
but
is.
but starting out was just yeah, I'd do anything, man, just to get it out there, man.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Well, now
very
kids
special.
nowadays, all they have to do is go online, throwing their shit up there. You could go out there on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and put their
Yeah, but it's not.
talents everywhere, and
But
it's
it's
like
not the same.
videos and this and that. And people are going out there doing the things and making videos of those things that they're doing and putting it online. But it seems like the end place or the pickup place, the depot where everyone is picking up all the information is online. And unfortunately, like, even though the content could be made all over the world outside and people are going out and doing things, whether skateboarder or people doing, everyone's doing like the dance thing. It's like every video is like every third video you scroll, it's like someone's like, and I'm dancing all of a sudden, and their words are popping up. It's like, all right, yeah. Or like, I'm dancing in Machu Picchu, and look at me, now I'm in Australia. It's like, who gives a fucking weird, it all winds up back in the same place on this tiny little, like, it doesn't
Dumpster.
matter where you're going.
The
It's in,
virtual dumpster.
yeah, it's in the virtual toilet.
It's true.
I don't know,
It's
man.
true.
It's a different time. What are you going to do? What are you going to do?
It's true.
What can you do?
I think there's a much more of an impact you can have of physically, showing somebody something that's tangible in the real world versus of what they're going to do when they're just
Yeah.
swiping
And being
with the
part
2
being,
seconds that they
being
have.
part of that present landscape, because like every neighborhood goes through the like generational sort of shifts, and you get used to seeing a certain kind of art around at all the coffee shops and the fucking the bars and this and that, and the locals like pushing, because the locals pushing to show their work in their areas is what sort of establishes what those areas atmosphere is at that time and feeling, even if it's for a split second, but it's for that split second, and it's part of the whole voice of things. And some things catch and some things fade. Mostly what catches seems to be really redundantly trendy or usurped by things that are make it super cool, and you can sell it with cigarettes, alcohol, and fashion models, and then you're like, but it came from the streets. And what do you think of that?
Look at this.
Ciao. Fuck it.
I came from the streets.
God.
Dude, I just remember there was even like a there was a coffee shop that I showed in New York City too before even I think CBG, or maybe it was around the same time CBGB's, before CBGB's.
Yeah, there were a few coffee shops and bars I showed at.
Yeah,
New York
there's
City.
a bar I showed at too in New York. Yeah.
I had a bar that caught on
I
fire.
just moved right what I was doing in Boston right to New York. I mean, let's face it, CBGB's 313 was a bar. That was a
It
gallery.
was, yeah. Oh, yeah.
So
it was just.
it was a bar.
It was a bar, and they had live venue. They were doing acoustic sets, and like it's acoustic, where it was like not as loud. They still like plugged into the amps and stuff, but it was quieter stuff. But yeah, the first place I think was a cafe that was in front of Club Babyland called Love 66. And it was like just the front part of a bar that was open during the day that was serving coffee, because espresso was still, even though it was early 90s, espresso bars were still exotic, to go,
Yeah.
oh, I'm going to get espresso and a fine piece of cake, in 1995
I mean, it took Starbucks to make it like a more.
this is pre-Starbucks. There were no
normal
Starbucks.
thing,
There were no Starbucks at the time, just coffee shops. And then every bar that I've ever worked at had the art, or at least drank at. Spoon Bar, which was on Avenue A between 1st and 2nd. Had my art up there for a while. I even sold work out of there. Like, that's the place that I became such a regular drunk that the bartender said, you might as well get a job here. I said, yeah, show me. And he took me behind the bar, and he taught me how to bartend. For the next 13 years, I was bartending in New York City. That's how I became a bartender.
Yeah.
And
where was Spoon Bar?
Spoon Bar is Avenue A, between 1st and 2nd Street. Wound up becoming like an Irish something bar, but the guy who sold it. But it was a very popular underground hip hop DJ night where my friend George worked, and George was the least underground hip hop guy you could meet. He was like a white guy from Queens, and he loved like the Big Bad Voodoo Daddy. He liked like that retro swing rock and roll, like
Yeah.
like he was into like, he wanted to have a zoot suit, but he was like, come on, it's 1996. This stuff doesn't. But whatever, man. He liked the swinging music, and at night it became like this fucking guy would come in. He was an incredible DJ, all hip hop, and he could scratch like fucking unbelievable. And this place would get packed, and I would say 98% of the people were under 21. And everyone was fucked up, and I would be getting fucked up, and it was great. It was loud, and Georgia complained the whole time, and be like, whatever, who cares? It's fucking packed, and it's totally illegal, and it was a lot of fun.
Wow.
And I lived right around the corner.
Were they still around then when you were at Hi-Fi and stuff?
No. They closed down probably before 2000. They became another bar. Okay, became like a sports bar or whatever. But that was the first bar.
I lived.
I know. Yeah, it became another one of those like run of the mill, dime a dozen sports bar kind of joints.
Itself.
But it was good. Yeah, it was good for while it lasted. And I lived literally right around the corner in A and First, or A and Second, so it was my local watering hole. That's why I was there so much, and I was in my mid-20s, so what else is there to do?
It's no different from when you're at Hi-Fi.
Yeah. Well, it started, I mean, that place started my whole bartending career for sure. I got it going. Oh, God. I had my work showing in a bar that I worked at, another bar I worked at on St. Mark Street, that caught on fire, and I was working happy hour. The place caught on fire, electrical fire, like in the window box. I noticed the smoke pouring out. I'm like sitting on what the desk of registers on with my feet on the bar, and smoke's pouring down. I jump down, call the fire department. Fire department come. I'm freaking out because my art's all hanging up there. I remember going up to the fireman, tugging on his sleeve like a 5-year-old, like this big.
My art gonna be all right?
And I said, sir, my work is hanging, all my artwork's there, and I don't know what to do. And he went in and moved the paintings off the wall in the front and moved them all to the back of the building.
Wow.
Like, and that was my hero moment. That was like my like Superman 2 moment, like cheesy superhero.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing, dude. I'm with you.
And I still have these. I still have some of these paintings, that survived the blast. The bar survived too. It was open up again soon, but.
So was that like museum school work, like type of shit?
No. This was stuff that was already made in New York. For sure.
Yeah.
I might have had 1 or 2 museum school pieces because there was like a handful, like a good 8 pieces that I thought were good enough to show, and at least 1 or 2 of them were museum school works. But they were all precious to me.
Absolutely. How do you feel about that? Do you feel like the longer you kind of have something, well, I don't know. Yeah, like it's like wondering, like the longer you have something with certain paintings, do they become less precious because you grow, or do they become more precious because you do grow, or you don't grow, or you still are, have a connection with that piece? Because it's funny, man. There's some work that I have where, like, not that I don't appreciate it, but it's just like it becomes to be maybe sometimes like less important than other things, But I guess listen,
time has a way of like marking itself.
Diminishing.
Just marking itself in like moments that like with millions of moments in between that are still incorporated or part of associated with, but not quite as poignant. And some of the works, like I could look around and be like, yeah, I really love that work, but what's my deep connection with that? But the thing is that sometimes that connection doesn't reveal itself till later, so you don't know if it's latent and
Absolutely.
in there somewhere, or that moment in your life is not as you don't understand it as well, or there's not as much poignancy to it like at the time. So it could seem less important or less, I don't know. But then there are those that are just works that you were making during that period of time.
Yeah,
It's
that's
like, you know, I've got another 10 of it just like it. It's got the same level of, impact on me as that one.
Yeah.
But certain ones just like, it's like, oh, I know exactly what I was fucking doing there, man. I know what I was thinking. Or
I know what I was going through.
Or even like
depression or happiness.
Or like I'm fucking I want to say gleaming the cube. It's like afraid of like fucking rocking it. It's it's like you ride that shit.
Your wheels about to bust out the trucks, bro. The fucking sandpaper and your deck's coming off.
You just know. You ride that shit.
I think sometimes I feel like maybe do I have like more of an admiration for the works that I no longer have, that like because I can't see them anymore, like in
well, I don't know, maybe it's because they've passed that test of being,
what are they worth?
Somebody bought one, somebody else wants it.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like that, it's like, I don't want this, and someone's like, I'll take it. It's like, wait a minute, that's mine. No, sorry, that's mine. Or I don't know. Yeah, it could be absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Yeah.
Or a lot of times, I mean, it's just a fact. The better work sells sometimes, and you're like, fuck, that was one of the better ones, and it's gone. It's just gone, and it's one of the better ones because it just hits. It hits that note. It's like know how to play the instrument, but
I'm sure too, where you're like, "Ooh, this is touching something here, man."
Yeah, and it's just good. It's like, oh, I did a really good
That's how I
job
feel
on
about
that.
that behind you, by the way.
Oh, this guy?
Yeah, I feel that's a very special one.
I'll give you a very good price.
Yeah. But the no, for real. But the yeah, man, it's
No, that's the thing. See, that last one, that one that I just I took to Germany, and my friend Gunter, the guy, I call him my friend. He's a collector, but you know what? He's my fucking friend. Yeah. I honestly feel a kinship with this guy.
You've stayed at his house and everything else.
We've broken bread enough times in enough different ways. That I feel is a friend. Anyway, when he got that last piece that I took of the Twisted Tower, and that one will be my first Twisted Tower that I made, I felt separated from a piece of work that I knew was important, that I knew was good, that I also encouraged him to buy, because I also knew I had to pay for the trip. Like, everything had to, like the shipping of the artwork and my own trip, being able to reconnect with my friends in Berlin, the whole experience was hinged financially on this sale. So I had to sell it. Even though I knew this was the fucking piece. I've been for 6 years in a kind of a rut, and this was the one that was like reminding me, it doesn't matter. A rut is a rut. It's a blip,
Yeah.
In the grand scheme of things. And then coming home and having the empty nest or the empty studio, whatever, I needed to make some fucking Twisted Towers that were like, okay, that was the one, but what did that one bring with it? Like, what's its residue? What's its side effect? Like, just because it was a huge one doesn't mean that it's done. It's made its mark on my work and on me, and impression on me. It's like, I feel like it's bringing more. Introducing more. It's like, let's start digging in some of those other ideas that you had before.
Well, that was the first note of the song, it showed up. Pretty much.
Yeah, it was just like, holy shit. It makes a sound. What other sounds can this thing make?
Yeah, what else is going to resonate from that?
Yeah, exactly. And this is one of the three, the one with the water city, and the one that's actually right behind this one over there. Kind of like reactions to being separated from the one that really like I still like I think about it and I think about that color palette and I'm like, oh God, it was so right. Those oranges were just, oh man, I'll never get it again. So I'm kind of chasing the dragon a little bit. It's a bit, It's a little bit after that like first hit of crack that you just want to get back. You know what I mean?
Rock is so tasty. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it makes absolute sense, though, you know, and that's a progression of, I mean, making work is like you want to be able to kind of go after what you got from that.
Yeah, I mean, finding that thing to chase, that's a big part, like, you know, and also being
well, that's the thing I've always appreciated about your work is that idea of like where, you know, you are, you know, I like I'll always consider you a true artist in that kind of way of like where you always you stumble upon, well, you don't stumble, but like you work through something till you get to something, and then you keep playing with that idea and you keep on transforming that idea until it leads into other things, and then it no longer even becomes the idea that you started with initially because it's gone through so many transitions. You kind of like deconstructed it into something different now. You know what I mean? And then eventually you find something else, and then you go into that, you know. And so, like the way that we talked about the nudes the other day, and like you work through that. And not to say that you won't do, not to say that you won't do nudes again at some point,
right?
But like you worked through that. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you always have the same.
It's always about the inspiration. It's always about like the inspiration. And I'm a bit of a sort of a curious archaeologist type of attitude about digging into it,
mining,
and like getting to the root of it. Because I also, you know, wind up, you know, I'm human too, and I wind up having like, you know, thoughts about, you know, the truth behind the like I want to get to the root of it, you know. I want to get to the reason why certain things about myself.
Which you initially probably, I mean not initially, which probably you never really do because you probably are always searching, you know.
Yeah, well, that's sort of the big joke at the end of it. Yeah, you could call it the fun, you could call it the joke.
Yeah, the joke.
But it's just life. I mean, in general, in a nutshell, you know, it's just another it's another facet of being alive. It's like exploring the things that you react to around you. And why? Curious. The science behind it, the biology and chemistry behind it, you know, is interesting. And the aesthetic. I'm also like very aesthetically driven and romantic about that. I love color, composition. I love shape, form, relation, and interaction between shapes and colors, space, and triggers. You know. Because it's about learning about myself too, you know, like what makes me feel a certain way, you know. It's a survival skill as well as a entertainment, you know.
I love it because I you know, that's why I love so much about this is just that idea of like what you know, the journey that we go on, and that idea of like, are you going to be happy at the end? Well, yeah, of course, as long as I'm like happy with the process, then you know, of course I'm going to be happy at the end, whether it's happy at the end of the painting or happy at the end of my lifetime with the journey that I took with the work, you know. And that's why I feel like too many people and not too many people, but just like being completely aware of, and I know it's hard to do when like it's our livelihood and stuff like that, but try not to wrap the money side or the not money, but like making a living at it and all that other shit into it, because
money
that is the nail, you know, that is part of the nail in the coffin to it, you know what I mean, where it's like it allows the joy of it to, you know, start to get really kind of fucked up in that, you know. And that, like, you know, somebody the other day online was talking about the idea of like, I guess that they were debating of whether or not how much they were going to pursue art, whether or not they could make a living at it. It's like, well, dude, you're getting into it for the fucking wrong reasons, man. Because like, if you're looking at it as a way to make a living, then the percentage is so fucking small of like people that
if
actually
you want to be an artist and you want to make a living at it, it's a little hard. No, it's a little hard to say now because it's COVID, right? But let's say everything's back to fucking so-called normal.
Yeah.
If you want to make a living as an artist, get a job in a bar or a restaurant. Get a fucking job to support the art, because you're not going to walk in at ground level or below and make money off your art. And if you do, it's a fluke, or it's or whatever.
Even 20 years later, you know what I mean? It's still it can still be you could still never make it, or it could constantly be a struggle.
And unless of course you're doing something. Let's say you're a graphic designer, of course, or a window designer, or something, some sort of like installational, doing stuff that is
business
directly connected to the commercial side, right?
Yeah.
But as a fine artist, as a you want to be a painter or a photographer, printmaker, whatever, sculptor. I mean, there is no like ground level job that is related to art except for painting walls and hanging other people's shows that you're going to make money from it. I mean, the chances are very slim to none. And going for that window, you're already on the wrong track, because you're like, do you want to win the Cupid doll at the fucking the Astro Park?
Well, you're already kind of starting with the work to be dead on the inside. If you're going into it with the aspects
the motivation,
you're living from it, because you're so concerned about, I think,
you're going
making money.
You're going immediately.
The artwork isn't even going to be true.
To make the money, you're already like going after other people's acceptance and opinion of the art being good art immediately off the bat. It's not about what you're what you're responding to in the world and creating. It's not about your own personal journey relationship with the work. It's about other people's. So right off the bat, that's like, you're a crafts person, or you're a hobbyist, or you're an engineer. You're not an artist. Which is fine, but you're not a fucking artist. Okay, and that word is very broad. You could use it for it is. It's just what it is, and that's what it is. And I'm not so discouraged by it that I'm embarrassed to say I'm an artist. I used to go around saying I was a mechanic when I was younger, in my 20s. People asked me what I did. I said I worked in a gas station as a mechanic, because I felt like it was right away. I didn't have to feel like I was under an umbrella. Or just under an umbrella of association.
Or defend the word,
or explain myself. And I was also embarrassed of what the connection of being the lazy last bastion of the person who doesn't want to do anything to earn a living. It's like an artist.
I've been making that. It's funny you say that, because I've been making that frame over the last week, and people, obviously, because the only place I can work is right in the front of my yard, and I live in a very busy area, so there's people walking the street all the time.
Right.
So multiple people a day will stop, that will talk to me, and they say, "Hey, what's that a frame for? Is that for a mirror?" And I'll be like, "Yes, it's for a mirror," because it's like, I don't want to have the conversation.
You don't want to have that conversation,
Yeah. I don't, oh, you're a painter, or you're this, all that other stuff, and how'd you? But it's just like, it's better left to be said, or it's for a it's a cabinet, it's for a cabinet door, or whatever,
right. Yeah, sometimes you just don't want to have that conversation.
Because it's like you don't want to get into it.
Yeah. Totally.
Because it opens up a whole nother fucking thing. And,
sometimes you don't feel like talking it through. But if you got me on a good day, then it's like, no. Who knows? You might make a sale.
I don't know. Yeah, that's true. I never even think about that.
Listen,
usually I'm like, I don't care what day you get me on.
My best collectors have been like just because of conversations and connection of serendipity, happenstance, just happened to be coincidental, feels right, and connection. Just connection, you know? And you never know what comes.
Well, I mean, a lot of times, you know, you know, I fucking hate talking like this, but it's, I guess, kind of interesting to
What?
touch upon. But, like, the idea of, like, a lot of time, part of the sale is, in that type of situation, if it's like a gallery situation, is being able to, you know, know the person behind the work, you know? Uh-oh. Did I lose you?
No, I'm here. I'm here. No, you're frozen.
You froze over here.
You're froze too. You're also frozen, but I can hear you straight, and I can see me. I'm moving fine to my.
Oh, my fucking recorder's frozen though. So hold on. Okay, am I recording? Okay, I'm recording. Oh, good. I thought I was just getting ready to wrap it up to be like, because I felt like I was keeping you up. But I totally lost my train of thought before my computer froze. Anyway, I just think that I think that it's important that to get back where this like started from within that is just that it's just so important to like everything that you were talking about, how you got to where you are right now with that painting that's behind you, whoever's watching the video part of this segment. But like it you know, that doesn't come without absolutely loving what you do in the process.
For instance, hold on. Oh, so drunk.
Oh yeah,
for instance,
that's good.
Did I say that out loud? So, for instance,
oh, nice.
like when you're saying getting to this point, like to get to this point of this work, like I'm going through piles of drawings, you know, several drawings are made till, you know, something strikes, and then you hit off of that strike, like something. I think one of the images that made this piece happen was a simplified idea and thought of it, which was this drawing.
Beautiful. Right? That's it. I mean, that's the painting. That's it.
Yeah, that for me, it's like
that is the absolute broken down, but
right.
But wow.
But this is like the spontaneous.
Hold that up again, please. Sitting
around and just like got some pencils, you got some brushes, and you got some paper, music, and some weed, and you go in and you go make a session of drawings.
Yeah.
Right? And every once in a while, like from this pile of drawings, you know, this one was one that struck and stuck and wound up becoming, you know, like this kind of like level of involvement and work, very detailed and whatnot. And the same thing happened with the other one, with the waves, you know. This guy.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, that's it, man. That is it.
But you know, this comes from like I have this drawing in several sketchbooks over the years as well.
Oh,
like,
I mean, you have that drawing just as waves. You know, you have that.
Yeah,
drawing,
and just as waves, exactly.
Yeah.
I have a series of works. I've like.
I mean, you literally have sculptures of that you made for gallery shows and stuff.
For years, I've done 3-dimensional. You know, like I did that one installation in what is it in Netherlands? There's Rotterdam. I went to Rotterdam with Daniel Van Ness, and I did an installation where I created like a theater box, and I made the several stage waves.
Yeah.
And that thing wound up being, you know, like 12 feet by 13 feet, and then made little tiny ones, the little itty bitty sculptures. But it's that conversation has been happening for a long time. It's a lot of just being in it, and not because like, oh, one of these days these webs are gonna make me a ton of money. It's like, no, fuck no.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I'm not tapped out just yet.
Yeah,
but you know what I mean. It's like absolutely. It's the passion of that fucking
about the process and like
And
where
that process and
know,
that conversation with the reoccurring image
yeah.
and where it goes and where how it mixes in with the other stuff that you
Yeah.
wind up
I
doing
need to
along
do
the way.
more physical man. And I'm totally not gonna do it, even though I say that I need to do it. But because I a lot of my process is all digital, and then
Yeah.
even the beginning stages of my digital process, I don't even have. They're not even save files because I keep reworking that process
Right.
until I get to the final result that I want
Right.
for that next painting. You know what I
So,
mean?
so you don't have
So yeah, so
the
I don't have the
progression.
documentation of the stick figure up until I mean, sometimes actually a lot of times I do my little stick figure drawings or whatever of
Mhm.
things, but a lot of it is just in the head, which it is for everybody.
Sure.
And then it's
Right.
just like starting to work out the idea. Okay, well that doesn't work, so let's move that around, blah blah blah. But it's all within that same kind of digital image, and that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I love that. I love that you get that binder, of just fucking of shit, like that. Well, it's not shit. I always say, I
It's a
use
shit.
the
It is
worst
my
words,
shit.
dude, for things to describe things. I'm
No,
like,
no, you're
that
just
shit.
part of a generation.
But yeah.
Don't be discouraged by the
I
fact that
know,
you
but
grew up
all this
felt a
thing
certain
fucks
way.
me up. This whole thing fucks me up because I think too much about the way that I'm going to be offensive. Anyway, and I should know that I'm talking to you and whatever. But the but that idea of just having that the treasure troves, like just like the notebooks, and the sketchbooks and all that stuff, and just
Well, they're holding a lot of those things that are in your head, on a
yeah,
physical surface, and the practice of making it physically, just because it doesn't always just come straight from head to heart to hand. There's a transition
well, it
period,
never, yeah, of course, yeah,
and there's also like you get to build on it like a piece of clay. You can change it, you can
yeah,
mold it, you
yeah.
go try to get it to hit that resonating point, like those pictures I made for babies, baby art. You know, I was
Oh
looking
yeah,
at pictures.
the curved.
Yeah, like the
Yeah, can
curved
you grab
ball.
one of them? Can you grab one of them? Just to.
Hold on, the binder.
Mm-hmm.
I have to go to a different binder for this.
But this is like very important because this whole thing becomes to be of a result you would never have gotten here, whether or not how much you tried to simplify what you were doing. You would have
Right,
never gotten here unless you were doing what's behind
making
you
all this other
first.
work.
Yeah,
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 I mean, it stems from a common root, right? Which is a form, a shape, a twist that triggers me,
mm-hmm.
right? And it's all about like what it makes me think about and what it makes me like get into whatever headspace or zone I like that I want to be, or that I am jiving with, whatever. And the baby pictures, like I think this is the first one, or no, this wound up being the first one. And then I worked on top of that one.
Yeah.
Now this was like
I love the cutouts, man. I love it.
I was thinking, I was looking at pictures of my friends, or his family, my family's children,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I was just thinking about babies. I was thinking about babies reacting to my work, and I was thinking about artists that have babies and what their work turns into, or if it changes at all, or how. I'm wondering, how do certain artists who have children, how do their kids react to their work, or how do they react to their children reacting to their work? It's nothing like
Yeah.
serious or like too much, just thoughts, curiosities about that. And I was starting to think about like work that I make and looking around and being like, in a baby's room, babies they're pretty like innocent in the ways of the details of things being scary or fun. Like the clown could be fun, but what the fuck is a clown? We don't even know yet what a clown is.
Yeah. Terrifying.
Or
I was a kid.
a bird or a cloud. All these things, but there's no real context to what a cloud or a bird or a clown is. There's just things, and whether or not they impact you in a positive or negative reaction, or what sticks and stays and becomes something else. And think about shapes and forms and colors that trigger emotions and feelings that could be interpreted as other things. Mm-hmm. So you can imagine like a thing that somehow the baby could connect to a man in a jacket, or a bird high up in the air, or like anything that could either be threatening, scary, curious, or fun, or interesting. Mm-hmm. And I was thinking about my work looks kind of scary in a lot of ways. I would imagine a lot of nightmares, because there's a lot of things happen, not because I necessarily do scary things, but the things that I create, I feel like if you don't have they're not for those who have bad trips easily. It's mm-hmm. like someone could have an understanding of deeper nuances into what I'm saying in my work. And a baby, I think, could be scared by it. So I started to think about shapes and colors that would not offend or not threaten, but sort of antagonize the creative ideas. Like, give something a baby to play with in their imagination, to come up with their own thing, like whether it's a wave or animal or the wind or just something.
Yeah, the thing that I love about it is like it which I didn't think about this when we were first talking about it a few days back or whatever, but like it's that child perception of looking at, say, the painting behind you right now and breaking it down to the most simplest forms and color. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Right. Because that's kind of what it is, a lot of it, Yeah, because, a baby might look at this and they wouldn't tap into all these detailed nuances of even windows, doors, mm-hmm. passageways, because they're not familiar with the concepts. Mm-hmm. But the shapes, colors, and interaction, tensions, and movement could create, feelings of joy, excitement, fear, curiosity, and just sort of like something that would stick with you. So no matter what later in your life, when you encounter as a child a form like this, whether you go to the zoo, you go to school, or you go to the supermarket with your mom, something about what you saw as a kid in this painting is still with you, And that's what I was thinking about. And I wasn't thinking about pondering. This image flashed in my head. Yeah, and then it was just
immediately, and I thought about it. It's like trying to go with the most because I felt like the more I thought about it, the more intention was behind the form, which is more foreboding, which is more pushing on the creativity of the baby, putting my impression. I wanted to be as vague and abstract while still having some aesthetical play and a little bit of manipulation, because you hit the form and then bang, the red is like a wah, wah. Mm-hmm. It could be a horn, it could be a stop, it could be
that
something
clown nose, like you said.
Yeah, or like I think of those seals with the balancing the balls on the balls and the waves and everything. It's just playful and also interactive, and something's happening. There's some music happening, some noise and blockage and stop and go. And that's just what happened. And that one image popped in my head. I kept repeating, so I kept making several different versions. I kept going and going with it, and just repeating it over and over, and creating all these different versions of it.
Do you find something within the repetition, not to even necessarily say a finished work, but in the sense of where you are doing the sketches, because that's a common thing with you when you work. You tend to do a lot of repetition of an image.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought to yourself what the reason is behind that, or you're just trying to, or is it just because of the journey that you're having with it that you're trying to figure out?
Yeah, I think some things are more fun to explore and repeat, and some things are stubborn. I thought that this image in my head was a stubborn image because okay, why, first of all, am I reacting to this one? And let me prove to myself that this is something that seems explorable, because I thought of the image, and it took me a few minutes to convince myself to get off my ass and do something about it. It's one of those things that could have easily been lost in the back of my head and gone. And maybe if I saw something that reminded me of it later, or just looked at one of my paintings and been oh, the curve, the ball, whatever. But I thought before it got lost, before it was gone forever, I'm going to put it down on paper because I have all this paper in front of me. This was during the time when I was talking to you and I haven't worked. I can't work. I'm sitting, I'm thinking. I'm like, okay, here's an opportunity to actually do something. Even though it seemed like petty work, like, like sweeping the floor or dusting the cabinet.
Kind of fucking work that you need at that point of your fucking life, or time or whatever the hell you want to do that day. That's how it's like for you to pass it by as just a thought would have been so shameful, because like for you to break it down to the simplicity of where you ended up going with it, I think is so important from where it came from, because it's come from a very complex kind of, well, actually, you know what? To be fair, it came from a very simple idea of the waves in general, right? Of you just drawing waves in the sketchbooks and so on and so forth, which finally led to these very complex paintings and that you've been doing, to finally coming back to, I mean, full circle, breaking it down to be very, very, like, childlike and, even simplistic,
Yeah, and with the thought and idea, the conscious idea of like considering the point of view of a baby.
Yeah.
Like I've had that, I've been that, like I'm entitled to it because I was a baby once, and of course I can't channel it the way I could channel, whatever. I can't channel it because I can't, because I'm fucking 48. It's been a long time, but it just seemed like something worth
exploring,
fucking with a little. Just paying some attention to, and I'm over it, and I got it out, and
for now.
Sure,
it
might revisit
until another 20 years from now, when it's just these simplistic lines or something that you're doing, but yet it still is.
Listen, something stuck with me. Something has stuck with me when I was in art school. I had a girlfriend for a little while, and she was an installation artist. Like, she did things like where you had a room with like 4 irons on the floor and a couple like ladders spread in between them. Right,
and like this kind of like work,
cerebral, very cerebral, postmodern.
How old was she?
Oh God, I don't know. She was probably, I was 22, so she was probably like 26.
Okay, questionable.
25.
She didn't live life. No,
excuse me?
I'm just joking. See, anyway, this is where I get tough on this situation, because I'm like, But anyways, we'll go into that.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. She was just a different type of. She was pursuing her art in a very different sort of approach, and I was doing these like photo collage, romanticized Greek mythologies recreated with, montage, and every once in a while, like I have this one of Saint Sebastian impaled by arrows, and it was just taken from several classical. There was a sculpture, a photograph of a marble sculpture chest, superimposed that I taped to a guy's chest, and he was wearing it like a piece of paper, like, because I did my collages, so
I
it was
think
all
I remember seeing a slide of this.
I had a slide of that one, but it was all like on the negative kind of stuff, and there were these 3 orange rectangles that I used as almost like the Fibonacci, the golden ratio, to follow the eye. It was like rectangle, rectangle, rectangle. And it just made the eye follow this piece. It was like a visual tool that I put in there. And I remember her at one point, like, she was such a different artist than me, and we got along really well. But, she didn't jive with mine, I didn't jive with hers. She's like, maybe one day it'll become just about the rectangle. And that stuck with me, like when I heard her say that, because it made me think of, for the first time in a very early part of my career, I was an artist pursuing, like, the absolute, like, the evolution of art to the point where you don't recognize it now. Yeah. You wouldn't be able to recognize yourself now down the line, but it's in there. And you got this work and all this stuff dancing around and blah, blah, blah. And just pointing out, maybe that's the hint. That's the secret. Like, follow that.
Yeah. I agree. I agree.
It was just a curious moment.
My thing is this, is like, not to rip into her, but but I will rip into that type of
Name was-
early young type of discovery. How the
Right.
fuck do you get? So here's the thing. This is what I love about the process that you're doing within how you got to where you are right now with the wave and the circle, right? Because of this gigantic fucking wave. Well, not wave, but this gigantic fucking movement of the last fucking 35 years or whatever, however long you've been making work in that and getting to this point of this. Like,
Right.
if you all of a sudden became an abstract minimalist artist tomorrow,
Right.
I'd get it. It would make sense to me.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It makes sense to me. Picasso makes sense to me. Not him being a douchebag, but like his artwork makes sense to me, right? He went through the gauntlet, I don't even know if the gauntlet's the right word, but he went through it, right? And that to be 24 and to be like, it's about the triangle or it's about that, like, it's like how do you get there without understanding the work, like, to be able to understand the whole process itself.
I think what for me is because, like, we connected on levels as people, like a boy and a girl, and as friends, and art. We're seeing things in different ways and picking up on different things, and I think it was just her own way, maybe, of relating to my work, having a curiosity and seeing.
I get that.
What are you getting from?
And she's into the minimalist abstract.
She was responding to those rectangles.
Yeah.
And those rectangles played a very important part of the piece. They were bright orange, like safety orange rectangles in this black and white, or mostly black and white thing that was like, they were obvious.
Yeah.
And she was just picking up on them as like, okay, this is the strong tool for me in the piece.
Yeah.
This is the part of the work that I'm responding to, and what if it's just about the rectangle, which, and I played with rectangles for a while. I was made welding rectangles. I was into the rectangle.
You drank the
No, rectangles.
No, yeah.
The reason why the rectangles were in the painting is because I was already obsessed with a rectangle.
Yeah, well, I mean, which makes sense because that's within the history of art to begin with, and it's kind of a.
And this just so happened to be the history of the work that I was making at the time, and the language. Like my friend Kai and I, we talk about rectangular resorcery. Like we had the visual, the verbal viral. We'd get high and talk about rectangles. We'd take acid and talk about rectangles.
I can see 3 rectangles in the painting behind you right now.
I mean, it's rectangles. Rectangle.
Yeah, right?
They're all over the place. And rectangular resorcery is about sorcery with rectangulars that have been part of my world since like 1991, of like talking about rectangles and work. So they're still in there, but like they were already like part of the sort of like visual narrative, right? But also with everything else. And the fact is that it didn't just become about the rectangle. The rectangle still remains very important. If anything, I got a lot noisier, and I got a lot more things happening.
Absolutely.
But I think I
got
could
a lot more confident.
I could quiet things down. I know how to quiet things down sometimes.
I just one last thing I'll say, and not to that person, just people in general, but like
to change. How dare you?
I just feel like if you instantly come into work, oh God, it kind of feels really bad to say it, but I'll say it anyway. But if you come right into work as like an abstract artist without understanding the growth, and this could be totally arrogant of me, but without understanding the process and the growth and the history and so on and so forth, then I feel like your work is very questionable to me.
I don't know. It's listen, man. Everybody sees things in their heads the way they see it in their head. Some people wake up,
that's true,
are born with abstract visuals in their mind. They respond to them that way. It's just how they're hardwired. And they express them that way because that's how they're hardwired. The understanding and appreciation of abstract, I think, is a cultural sort of awakening rather than like a new way of seeing, a learned way of seeing. I think abstract way of approach to things is primitive and very natural. But as far as culturally, visually accepting as a communication that we're all like able to share rather than like a clear, crisp image of somebody holding a thing done, or like a naked person on a waterfall where you understand it's drawn out, it's a performance, it's a play for you, it's decadent, it's but an abstract is it's a bit deeper, it's more psychological, so it could be more like almost invasive because you're getting into people's heads and it could trigger more suppressed feelings or repressed feelings or maybe too intellectual. Sometimes people respond to intellectual things. Look at all the rednecks in the United States when you think about science and logic. Look how they respond. They want to set things on fire because they're so unresponsive to that way of thought. I think abstract, there's a rebellion to abstract thought because it is natural, but it's a bit, maybe it's too personal. Maybe it's too human.
Because I like representational work so much that I have a hard time. But there's so many artists that I like, and is that because they're famous that I like them? Like like de Kooning's or like fucking
de Kooning, but de Kooning was good.
Yeah,
Elaine
but
de Kooning
like
were fantastic painters. They were great painters. So
Kiefer, like it's I know, but it's weird because but then again, Kiefer has a lot of representational imagery within his work too. You know what I mean? So
maybe you're thinking.
I have a hard time when people come to it without.
Well, I think almost that it's too. It's
also,
too
I met
easy.
a lot of doushbouses in art college, I guess.
Sure.
Well, we're just doing abstract work and like
abstract work could be as much of a cop out as like another cheesy like Pearl Jam sounding band. Derivative. It's very derivative. It's very easy to be derivative of another artist who does abstract. I suppose like abstract artists that grow to fame. Have grown to fame, like Rothko's or whatever. The what's his fucking name?
Are you
Motherwell.
Motherwell, yeah.
They not only were like making poignant work, but it's also like at a time when there was cultural shift of thought and stuff. Because I think abstract work runs really deep. It's not as accessible as like as representational work. You can't convince people of its merit as easily.
Another fucked up part of me that's kind of wrong in my way of looking at it is that like I'm cool about the 50s and I'm cool about the 60s and like that whole era of like that abstract movement happening and stuff like that. Right. But like the way the modern art world is now, I mean, I just have much more of a kind of a problem with it now.
Because you think of hotel art, think of like this cheesy stuff that you see in a hotel, like in a motel.
Well, see, the thing is, like back in the 60s or whatever, like you had these people that were obviously creating this movement, in New York and stuff like that, and you had these people that were just, I mean, that's simple enough. Creating a movement.
And these painters.
And they believed in it, where now it's like, not to say that people nowadays that are making it don't believe in it, but it becomes to be more of kind of like a
parody.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
Look what happened to the hippies in the 60s when everything got groovy and then everything got a little disco-y and everything got picked up by like advertisers. And
perfect. I feel like, I'm sorry to cut you off, but perfect.
That's all right.
The thing about representational work and that I feel like that can't be parodied is because it takes most of the time, it takes a lot of work to get there. So there's a lot less people willing to put in the fucking time.
I suppose.
To get there. I don't know. That's crazy. Dude, I feel like I'm being super douchey about the fucking.
No, it's not. It's not being super douchey. You're exploring it. You're figuring it out. Sometimes you want to know why. Like, I want to know why I'm annoyed by shit. I want to know why. I want to know what makes me so fucking upset about stuff. I don't want to just be upset.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, because I think it's complete. I mean, now I'm going to go back on everything that I just talked about, because I do think it's. Because you brought up a really good point where it's just like some people just see, you know, you didn't say that, but like abstract or whatever, or maybe you did, but like
some people
just see things in
filter.
that kind of way, you know, and you know, most of the time that I dream that I'm painting, it's always abstract, and I'm like,
you know what?
Is that? You know,
really?
like I can, yeah, every single time, almost 90%. 95% of the time, whenever I look at my paintings and my dreams, are always abstract. So, who knows what that is?
It's interesting. I mean, it's just your brain, man. It's the besides the bottom of the sea, it's the least known thing we know.
Yeah.
Around us. But the thing about abstract art is, I think that absolutely anybody could create abstract art. Right?
Yeah.
But it's like anybody could pick up a guitar and not always make it sound nice.
Yeah. Hello.
You make a sound
I make noise with one, but I don't know how to play one.
But does it sound good? No, there's difference.
Yeah.
And there's more creative approaches to it. You know?
Yeah.
Some are just much better than others. Some are very innovative and creative, and some are just experimental and curious, and some are just awful.
Yeah.
You know? Or some just play the easy note that just harmonizes like everybody. Like, it sounds good, but, you know, that's a dime a dozen note.
Yeah, I know. See, and that's a weird thing about, like, everything I'm saying right now, because I do feel like everybody should make art. You know, whether it's
everybody's
painting,
capable
it's
of
sculpture,
making it. Everybody's
whether
capable
it's
of
music, whatever it is, like, make shit. You know,
it's like talking and singing. It's breathing. It's just one of those things that you have the capability of doing without having to pay anybody to do, or really like pay a lot to do it, unless you try to make a living off of it. That's very expensive investment, you know. But it's not. It's very reachable, very tangible, you know, form of communication.
Yeah.
You know. Not everyone's good at it. That's it.
No, but not. Yeah, but then like there's something in there that you probably are good with. So it's just about moving kind of over to that, you know.
Some people are not good at anything.
That's true, I guess.
Some people are just not good at anything. That's it.
Yeah.
They should get into maybe shrubbery, or like maybe they're better at, like, I don't know, wrapping.
Shrubbery takes a lot of talent too.
I'm working in a fucking factory. I don't know. The fuck out of here. Yeah. Either way, they'll be making more money than me.
You know.
But I'll be happier. And I'm not a very happy guy. Can you imagine what a factory worker feels like?
Yeah.
Fuck.
Yeah. It's tough, man.
I don't know.
I've been there.
All over. Oh, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird because I'm such like I have both sides so much, you know. I think the thing is because now here it goes again. Once the money comes into it, and then I see like, fuck it, I'm not even gonna go there. I don't know.
No, I want to think about it. Come on.
I see like when I see a banana taped to a wall and it's selling for, you know, $100,000 or maybe even $1 million. I forget what the fuck that thing even. Well, I didn't even
$12 is
whatever the fuck it was, right? And then somehow that is considered art. I guess I got a problem with it, right?
Well, that's why that goes right back to me pretending to be a mechanic instead of an artist. It's embarrassing because you're under the same umbrella, right? But it's what's happening now.
But then for that though, David, it comes to be about a statement that he's making. about the art world, right? Or she. I don't even know if it's a he or her or whatever. But
Well,
like,
now you're getting into gender.
oh,
You're in very
fuck!
dangerous
Yeah, I know.
territory,
I just
David.
fucking I stepped into it.
Gender. No, you know what? Don't just fuck everybody. But it's the statement is ridiculous. It's like
It's not important.
it's self-parody. No, it not only is it not important, it's like it's redundant, it's derivative, it's tongue-in-cheek, it's preaching to the choir, it's fucking dime a dozens, every single platitude I could come up with to describe this as a hack, stunt, cocaine high, excitement, kind of like,
Yeah.
the fucking douchebag, the loud douchebag in the booth.
Yeah.
And the gimmick, see, I even forgot what brought this. I'm just like sunk in the size of it.
I was just talking about that idea of like, I don't even know how the fuck I came up with this. So I was just talking about that. Everybody should be able to create art. Like at first, I'm shitting on the abstract fucking thing, and then like everybody should be able to make art, and then but then you got these fucking people too that are making art.
These are.
Oh yeah, I talked about the money side of it. Like, is it the money that irritates me? Of like where these people are kind of patted on the back by being supported by like saying, "Yeah, dude, what you're doing is great."
I think it's indirectly related to the money, but it's related to rich people and how rich people behave in this realm, whether it's the art or politics or anything, celebrity, entitlement, self-congratulatory, self-preserving, and undeserving of certain recognition because of their resource capability of reaching large amounts of people associated with things being culturally popular. It's garbage. It's a lot of fucking bullshit. And I see now I even forgot why we would call these things.
I love it. Yeah. Thank you, everybody, for checking in to another episode of Gimmie Babel.
If you want to
get any
talk
questions,
to us, write to us because we haven't gotten. Actually, we got an email from the other day from what's his name, Mr. Serial. I think he wrote something.
Nice.
It wasn't a bunch of questions, though. It was just like Mr. Funny Comments guy.
Good.
Yeah.
He texted me the other day, or a couple weeks ago. And I had a little back and forth with Mr. Serial.
Sweet Serial. Hey, Serial, why don't you put some questions together for us?
Yeah, please do.
A while. We haven't got to that in a bit. But yeah, write to us at gimmibabble@gmail.com. You can find us on SoundCloud and iTunes. You can find us on YouTube. It's YouTube.com. I don't know. Gimmie Babel YouTube.
Yeah, Gimmie Babel YouTube.
I don't know.
I don't know how the fuck it goes. And just search for us, Gimmie Babel, on YouTube, and you'll find us. Yeah. All right. Well, love you, everybody.
And I love you, Stoupakis.
I love you too.